Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Pace Pals. I'm your host, Geo, joined alongside me, Zeas44, the legend, and we have a very special guest for you today, an incredible interview with Geenix, an interviewer himself. He's done phenomenal interviews of some of the best in the community, just to name a few: Suiji, Callie, Cheese, Punke, Marlene, Be Simply, Ouija, just the legends of our time. And Geenix is a very accomplished Mario runner himself. A 120 star PB of 144.04. That's 98th place, top 100. That's incredibly impressive. And then you've also got a 49 and 70 star, a low 16 and 16 star, and an 840 and 1 star. You're just missing 0 star. Geenix, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, dude. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, of
Of
course. We're
course.
Excited.
we're honored to have you on. It's a pleasure on this beautiful Sunday, Labor Day weekend. Are you going to
Very, very
run
beautiful
zero star at
Sunday.
any point?
I don't really want to.
Yeah, I
Dude,
get
I
that.
didn't even want to run one star. Like the SPLJ is just fun, I think. So I did
Oh,
it for
you
the
don't
league, and it was a pain.
you don't want to make it harder and do DDD skip. You just want to stick to regular
Yeah, I think I'm good.
SPLJ.
It took me. I tried to do it in just one day, and like I'm good at done. It took me
Yep.
so long to just get an attempt where I got it like second try.
It's so
It's just a
hard.
weird trick.
It's so hard. I don't think I've ever done DDD skip without save states because there was a point where I was kind of. It's the only category I haven't done also, and I was like, I feel like I should have a run in all five. And after like an hour of that, I was like, I don't need this. This isn't necessary.
Yeah.
it's, it's no good. Is 120 your main category? I take it from the time.
Yeah, now it is. I remained 70 for a long time, and yeah, it's been 120 pretty much ever since I got my 49.
I love that. That's awesome. I mean, 120 is. I would never admit it in a public setting, as I say this on a recording. 120 is the superior category. I think it's the best one. I mean, there's something about
It's
special
awesome.
about beating the whole game. Zeus, you've been grinding 120 lately.
I've been on a little bit of a 120 kick. I feel like I've just gotten so much better at console gameplay after switching to MU or after switching from MU, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna send it. I'm just gonna send it. It's time.
It's time.
It's been really fun though. It's been really
The
fun.
full game mark. Are you inspired by all of these runners that we're covering?
A little bit. I
Yeah.
mean, we exclusively, almost exclusively at least, talk to 120 runners, so it's like I'm missing out, man. I'm getting FOMO. I'm getting 120 FOMO.
Dude, I get it. I get it. Well, Genix, you also talk to a lot of 120 runners, more than just 120, because I know Dinner's in there, and he runs 120, but obviously 70 is Dinner's baby. I think it's fair to say. Where did you get the idea for this interview project where you come out with these phenomenal long interviews, really in-depth interviews, and you get a lot of these runners' personalities and kind of their inner workings? Where'd you come up with the idea for this?
So it was something I wanted to do for a while. Like long ago, when I wasn't really actually in the community, I had thought about this idea of just sitting down with people and doing these long form things. There's a YouTube channel I randomly came across a while back called Montreality. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them. Um,
Also,
they do like interviews with musical artists and stuff, and it's kind of the same style. It's just like questions on screen, and they're just kind of flowing. And it's like I was never very much so into hip hop, but there was a lot of interviews with hip hop artists, and just the way that it kind of made them seem so relatable so easily was really cool. So that was kind of the idea, was just trying to like present their character, to the best of my ability by just letting them have like kind of a stream of consciousness. They're talking and expressing themselves.
mm,
Yeah, I mean it's an awesome idea. And you do it so well. I feel like you accomplish that end because it is just them. You have the text come up on screen like you described, and it really allows it to feel like it's just them, almost like a video diary of them, but it's guided with your questions, which is a really really cool way to kind of get to know these runners better. Runners that I feel like we all know, and we see their streams, we see their gameplay, but it's a more intimate way to get to know them, which is really cool.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that it was perceived so well because I was worried, and like still sometimes people talk about wishing that there was audio questions. I think in the future I would like to do like an audio only version for people that don't want to like sit and watch it. But there's two things with that is I definitely think the stream of consciousness, like not breaking that up, part of what makes it like artsy or whatever. Um, but then also if you have to actually like sit and pay attention to it more, it kind of makes it easier to get invested in the things they're saying, like very naturally.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, we've talked about kind of the medium for us. Obviously, we do YouTube videos, but I think there's a time where we talked about, does it make more sense to, not more sense, but does it make sense to also have like a Spotify? Or are we being listened to more? It is kind of tricky as the creator of this type of content to figure out like, how is it being consumed? How do I want it to be consumed? How do I want people to engage with this material? And it's, I don't know, it's tough. It's tough to figure out kind of that balance and what the right move is for sure.
Yeah, I'm. It seems like for the most part, it's fine. Those comments are there, but for the most part, people, I think they slowly get through it. A lot of them are long, but it's something they can digest over time.
Mm.
I didn't have timestamps on the first ones, which I regret now, and I still need to like go back and sometime. Started doing that more so that people can dive around as they please. That's definitely a good idea.
That's a time intensive process though, because we do timestamps for ours, and I use it as a way to like actually watch it because we have our production guy take care of everything in the back. That's Zeas. He does the editing and everything, and then I'll watch it back. But it does take time. But I think it. I don't know. I hope it makes a difference. I don't know if viewers are actually using the timestamps or not. But I think with a long form, it makes sense. And I mean, there's so much good content in there, at least for me too. I know I've watched your interviews as like a way to prepare for ours. Cause you inspired us, in how you interview and kind of getting this, creating this profile of these runners. And so it's cool to kind of, I don't know. For me, it was like a research project watching yours, and I literally took notes. I have a notepad. I don't know if I still have it. I've moved since then, but I literally had a notepad that had just pages of like notes on the cheese interview. I think the Cali interview was another one that I like took hardcore notes on. But I mean, you're doing awesome work out there.
Yeah, thank you. And that's super cool that it was able to inspire you guys to do this stuff. And yeah, the idea of people looking back at it and using it as a resource for like the kind of things to know about these people is a really cool concept to me. And just the fact that your guys' stuff and potentially any other form of content for the game, I really like the idea that I could have possibly inspired people to do more of that stuff. Just because I think the more there is, I think Mario 64 is really, really special. I love this game to death, and I think the more stuff there is like that, like, Trey Bordo is doing all his content now too. It just makes it so much more real. Like the game is there, but then the community is like this ethereal thing that's really special, and all of it just goes in to make it more real.
Yeah. I mean, it gives it like an extra dimension.
Mm.
I mean, we joke about how there's like, oh, we're like the media covering this event, but it is kind of cool that then there's, people talking about pace in the same way I grew up with sports. And so that was like another inspiration for me, was kind of ESPN and watching how people cover, whatever sport it is going on. And it's cool that there's like pace is generating that same type of conversation, and there's this competitive aspect to the league that existed before. People compete for world records, they compete on the leaderboard, but in a different way now, in this different format, which I think is really cool. But yeah, I mean, it's everything that kind of adds another layer to the community is incredible.
Yeah, and like having the qualifiers now and being able to track that as it goes on, that's a really cool idea. So I'm glad that you guys have been doing that, because there's people that don't think having qualifiers are that good because you miss out on having like a world record holder there. But it's different than just like, oh, we got all the best players here. This is the people that competed in this competition and performed better than everyone else, and they got in, which I love. Like, it's just a different thing, has its own place.
Yeah, and I mean, having as much coverage around that kind of thing gives it, I think Geo kind of mentioned it, but gives it like a lot of like sense of validity. Like, I feel like it just gets more people paying attention, and it's a different way to attract more audiences, because people might be more apt to sit down and watch something like your interviews or like a podcast like this. They might not be super apt to sit down and just watch a run or watch a Twitch stream. So it just really opens up the avenues for people to get like connected to Mario and the community and the people involved and the culture. It's a really cool format.
Coming back to watch your guys' stuff after those events, because I don't think people would necessarily like go and watch odds back for those. They'd probably just watch clips. So if you can't be there for the actual thing, having like a media outlet type like you guys are doing to cover it is really nice.
You got to give people more options, more things to consume than just, one method. But it is cool to see that these different styles of content kind of blossoming within the community, and so many people making so many different things, which is great because, I mean, like you, I think I could probably speak for Zeas here too. Like, we both love the game like you do. And so to have more options to engage with it and engage with people who also are really passionate about it is just, it's the best. What was your process for writing / coming up with your questions? Because obviously that's a huge part of like having them. They're this, at least for the summer pace 2023 ones. I think they were the identical set across all interviews, right?
Yeah, well, there was portions that were identical,
Okay.
and then so the beginning was always it would start pretty much the same, and then I'd go into more personal questions. I would always try to get people to talk about media they enjoy, because I think, especially, I would phrase it as, like music that resonates with you or media that resonates with you. A lot of it didn't get like too intense responses, but there were some that were really interesting. I think that can say a lot about someone. But the more specific questions, I followed these people for a while, but also some of them, like Suiji and Callie, I've talked to a fair amount. So I had a lot in mind when it came to all of them. So yeah, it was mainly just my own experiences following the community and having interests in what kind of stuff might be interesting to get out of them, and then just general questions about the game and different personality, like test questions that I think would be good.
So if you're approaching an interview with somebody that maybe you don't like know very well, or maybe you haven't had a lot of conversations with. I know Geo and I definitely think about this when we do interviews with people we might not know super well. Um, how do you approach that? Like, how do you build that like relationship or that rapport to get them comfortable for an interview, or you know just to get them in that headspace?
Well, I've tried to handle it as professionally as I can. A few people definitely were like, especially because, it's not just this conversation like what we're having. I just give them the question and let them go. And occasionally, like, we'll intercept. Obviously, that all gets cut out. But I just try to approach it with like this kind of happy professionalism. The only skill I've had from jobs I've worked at is customer service and, like, I guess, managing stuff a bit. So I just try to make it as easy of a process as I can for them, make them comfortable, and then I try to make it very clear that I'm listening. I do a lot of like, yeah,
Right. Right.
and just after each question, I talk to them a bit about it and tell them how I enjoyed it, that kind of stuff. And it does seem like every time someone's been nervous about it, over time I can tell they get more comfortable with it. And I think that's because people enjoy talking about themselves. Like, a lot of people might not expect that they would, but naturally, when you're just able to talk about yourself and have someone listen, it ends up being an enjoyable experience for most people, I think. So yeah, I just try to make a good, comforting, professional environment. I think for the most part, I've done decently at it.
I think you've crushed it. And I think it's totally true. People do like talking. It's an easy place to talk about yourself. You know it well. It's so funny. In a totally different interview context, this just resonated with me. When I was in law school and I was interviewing for jobs at firms or whatever, uh, one of the biggest strategies we talked about, because you interview with like the firms come on to like your campus and you do a million interviews in a week. It's like the craziest week ever. And one of the strategies that people would talk about is like, just get the interviewer talking about themselves, ask them questions about what they're doing, and then if that kills most of the interview, they're gonna walk away being like, great vibes, like that was such a pleasant experience because they were talking about themselves, and it's gonna look really good on you. And it's so funny that that was the same exact idea in a slightly different context, obviously, but it is true, I think. And I think it's people do walk away, feeling good about that, and probably on a question by question basis, if you can get them to talk about themselves, they're starting to feel good, they're probably starting to feel more comfortable, especially if you're giving them kind of those like signs that showing you are listening, you're interacting with their answers and everything. And I feel like that can kind of break down any barriers that nerves might put up, and leads to like a more natural and stronger profile that you're building through your video.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad that it has worked out well. Yeah.
I noticed we've had that a few times where I feel like in the first few questions I could feel maybe like one of our guests was a little more nervous. And I do similar things to you, but like try to show that I'm listening and like encouraging, like, yeah, things that show your answers are great, you're doing a great job. And I feel like that kind of encouragement usually helps to bring them out of their shell a little more too. But it's always, I don't know if you feel like this, it's always so rewarding if I can tell a difference from the beginning of the interview to the end, where it's like, oh, we've done a good job making this person feel comfortable, kind of reinforcing and encouraging them and making them, feel better about offering more insight with each of these questions we ask.
Yeah, for sure. The one I felt that with the most was with Beast, actually. Like I
Yeah.
could just tell with the body motions he was a little nervous, and then just as he went on, and he had some great like wholesome family stories
Mm.
from his past and stuff. And it was just a really chill experience, and then I could tell like by the end he was completely comfortable with it.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. It's cool too, because that was around the time when I feel like Beast was really coming onto the scene, was like Summer Pace 2023. Obviously, he had that legendary, last second overtime. He was the last run of Pace that year. And then his family made the huge splash, which was just the most heartwarming stuff you could imagine. You can't even script it better.
It was beautiful. Like
Yeah, but
yeah, being in the crowd behind that like shot, I was right there next to the person that filmed that, and like, dude, I don't know, it just swept this feeling over me to see that for this game that I love, someone supporting their child like that is just so amazing. Well, their child, but he's a full adult.
yeah. Well, I feel like we're all our parents' children always.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course.
You can't grow out of that. My mom would definitely say that. Of the people you interviewed, who would you say was the most naturally outgoing and talkative?
Jeez.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he just kind of flowed immediately. He seems very happy to just talk and yap and chat about himself. That was funny because like all the interviews had gone on decently long, but we had about an estimate for what we could tell people it'd be. So we were like, yeah, 45 minutes to an hour. And then I remember we had to keep stopping the camera after 30 minutes because it would cut the footage.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that the first time, and we had only gone through like 4 questions or something. And I was like, all right, this is great. This is awesome. We
Holy.
love this. But just so you know, if we work at this pace, like, it's probably going to take over. Is that okay? And he was totally down for it. So
What
yeah,
a
that was
legend.
sick.
What a legend. Yeah, I feel like he just does a great job of articulating his thoughts too. And I feel like it's clear he's thought about a lot of this type of stuff, because it was when we interviewed him, it was like a similar thing. And so it's like he has these answers and they're so well prepared, but in like still a very natural way, which is a really cool combination to get out of someone.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems like the kind of person that ponders about things quite
Yeah.
a bit.
Introspective.
Mhm.
Totally agree with you there. When you had this idea and you wanted to go to the execution stage, did you reach out to the runners independently, or did you go through GSA or Milo, or kind of what was your strategy there?
Yeah, I reached out to everyone individually. Most of the people the first time around I already had some form of connection with, or at least, they knew people that knew me. Um, yeah, the only one that took a while to get a hold of was Punkay, but other than that, everyone was pretty receptive, easy to reach out to, which was really nice. I think in a game like this, people are very open to being reached out for opportunities. Definitely, there were some people that had to kind of convince that it would go well, but you know, I think I did a fine job at that, I guess.
What was that process like?
Thankfully. Well, there were some people that were just a little uncomfortable with the idea, but uh, after they started happening, like 'cause there were a few people who were still on the fence, and after I actually started getting the interviews going, kind of just was like, they had a wonderful experience. I think this all went well. If you don't want to do it, that's totally fine, but I think it'd be awesome. So yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, word of mouth is it's a big factor, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like if one runner does it, you're thinking about trying to get somebody else on, like that runner talks to that person and they're like, hey, like it was actually pretty chill, like it went really well for me, so I'm sure it'll go well for you, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I hope for the most part everyone came out having a good experience, and I think they did.
Yeah.
I think that's the key is like the combination of both those is, make sure people have a good time on it, and then other people will be more likely to come on too. And so
Yeah.
it like helps, it just helps kind of feed the future for other interviews. I know there's some that we have like a long list of like our white whales, so to speak, of like people we'd love to interview. But like Ouija, I'd love to interview, but I wonder if he would want to. Because I know it seems like he seems to be a little more reserved in his personality, and kind of being in that like center spotlight. Obviously can be probably it's not his favorite spot to be in, but obviously you interviewed him. How did that go?
He seemed pretty much down overall. Yeah, there wasn't he was pretty open to it, and he was chill throughout the process. Um, I guess I don't know if I could say if he would have flourished more in that environment rather than like having this conversation, but I think he likes trying to break out of, you know, I don't know what you want to call it, just that sort of like what you were saying, how he seems maybe a little more reserved. I think he enjoys trying to break that. At least that's the vibe I got. So, I think he'd be down. It definitely he was pretty down for doing this stuff with us. Didn't really have any issue with that.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome. Were there any interviews you were nervous for leading into, or not really?
yeah, I mean, I guess just starting it out, I actually forget who the first one was, but obviously just starting to do it, not knowing if it was gonna go well and not knowing if like it was gonna be received well in any way. Um, But yeah, after I started getting it done, not really. There was I when we were doing Beast's interview. Actually, I guess that might have been more just because I didn't know him at all, but it wasn't that much. But anyways, when I was doing that, I like 10 minutes before we were starting, I realized I forgot the lavalier mic at the hotel,
Mm.
and I actually like ran all the way back from the venue to the hotel to get that in the summer heat in like flat
Mm.
shoes. But I did it. I did what needed to be done, and I got back in time.
You got to get the job
That was
done, right?
nerve-wracking. Yeah, it was like the show must go on, and it must go on time. Because
Yes.
definitely don't want to make this a nuisance for this person.
Look, and people don't think interviewing is an athletic venture here. All
Mm.
right, it's not the case.
This is a sport.
It's a
All right.
sport.
Just listen to Geenix. This is a sport. Okay.
If you want to make it an athletic activity, just forget stuff every time. Don't realize
Exactly.
till 10 minutes before.
You'll be in great shape by the end.
And
Yeah.
now Geenix has never forgotten another piece of hardware ever again.
Yes. Yeah, I am the type of person that really hates forgetting stuff, and so every time it does happen, I have a good couple month spans where I'm like triple checking everything every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Geo kind of mentioned we have like a list of people called our white whales we'd love to get on, but do you kind of have that list? You've interviewed so many people, but is there other people maybe that attend PACE or just in general that you would love to sit down with in particular and have the same style of interview?
I've definitely wanted to do one with Milo for a while. Like that'd be interesting. That would certainly be easy to set up. I'm sure he'd be down, but since he's so busy with stuff at Pace, I haven't been
Mm.
sure. And this last time, I was going to do Blue Bob and Gothic. And I still would really like to do that. Blue Bob unfortunately got COVID, so he couldn't come as early in that schedule
Yep.
it.
I don't think I realized that leading into
Yeah, it
pace
was
last time.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
But Gothic was more on the fence about it. I think he was coming around to the idea near the end, so maybe sometime he'd be down to do it. Those two I think would be really cool. They're older school players that are still like near the top, and I think that's dope.
Yeah.
So there'd be a lot of stuff to talk about there. I love talking to people about like how the game's changed over time. That was something I really enjoyed about Punk A's.
Mm.
Gothic
So other
has.
than that, sorry.
I was just gonna say Gothic has a lot of stories like that. I mean, his game knowledge and knowledge of like what things used to be like, what racing used to be like back in the day is just it's like an encyclopedia of phenomenal knowledge, and just like listening to some of his stories is like phenomenal. It's so cool. I hope you get to do Gothic because I feel like Gothic in your format would be really really cool.
Yeah, he's a great dude, super nice guy.
The nicest.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, you're
other than
gonna
that,
have
I'm really trying to think. Um, as far as Mario 64 runners, I'm not really sure. I think I've kind of hit all the major ones. It would be super cool to do more Japanese runners. Um, but that's tough.
How was the interview with Marlene? Who was translating?
Emmy Bella.
Of course.
She's actually fluent in Japanese,
Yeah.
and she was down to do that. It ended up being a lot shorter. I think she ran a lot of the questions by him ahead of time, and he wasn't too comfortable with a lot of stuff, and that's fine. So
Yeah.
it ended up being a lot of the more like less personality based questions, but it was super interesting. I was put in a precarious spot where I noticed myself because I wanted to do the body language thing to make them know I'm listening, but can't understand it, so I'm just kind of like nodding a little bit. I'm like, wait. But yeah, that was a super interesting. And she would just like kind of give me a rundown of what he said to see if there was anything I'd want to like add a question about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think probably one of the coolest things that came of that was just like when a Japanese runner name drops American runners like that, there's always this moment of like, oh, that's cool.
It's so
Yeah,
funny
it's just
hearing the combination of languages. I've been in Latin America a lot, and I'll speak Spanish with people. But when they say like the American name of something, like Starbucks comes up, or like an American person's name, and it's so funny to hear like Spanish, and it sounds a certain way, and the accent, and then all of a sudden it just like clicks with this like word that just it's kind of jarring. It's like it doesn't feel like it belongs. It's so funny.
Yeah, yeah, it's just like a system shock. So you're like, wait,
yeah, like I recognize that.
I'd love to like see more content around JP runners in general, because like we hear, in America we talk about the names like Simply Cheese, Punkay, those guys, but and those are the people you normally see in like tournament settings as well, and like competing and stuff. But I'd love to like have a way to get more JP runners involved and kind of like bridge the gap between the two, I guess, sides of the community. Because I feel like JP runners have so much to add and so many interesting things to say. But the language barrier is obviously the hardest part.
yeah.
So like I've thought about trying to get JP runners involved in like events that I run and stuff, but it's just hard. It's hard for scheduling. It's hard for language, barrier wise. So we got to figure out a way. We got to figure out a way to bridge the gap a little bit more.
Thought about trying to do a small series of interviews with JP runners and having Emmy help, but we just kind of never finished setting it up. I think it'd be quite a bit of work, especially for her. I don't know if like I don't want to put that on her. So
Right.
I feel like that's such a huge challenge because we have people who can translate, but it puts so much on their plate, and it's such a time burden for them, which just it does make it so much more complicated, unfortunately.
just having her do the subtitles for Marlene's, that wasn't that much. That definitely took a while, and I was like so appreciative, but it felt kind of bad because I'm not paying anyone for these jobs. Doing it out of the kindness of their heart.
Yeah, a lot of volunteer time. And the other thing too, Zeas, you mentioned this, but just the time difference does make it. I mean, it's like, especially from the East Coast, I feel like it's a brutal time change.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, even scheduling with Australian runners and commentators.
True.
Oh my God, it's like a 14-hour difference. It's like, holy shit. Like, I feel like it's so hard to schedule things to like appease to everyone in the US and the EU and Australia. Like, somebody's gonna be staying up until 5 in the morning.
I feel like it just doesn't work, especially with those three places. We're looking at like roughly, I feel like thirds of the world here. So it's like obvious, like somebody has to get screwed there.
Right. There's got to be an odd man out.
It's been a little unfortunate. I feel like the Japanese runners don't get as good of a chance in the pace qualifiers because of the time zone differences.
Yeah.
No.
Which just is what it is. I don't know if there'd be a way around that, like a JP exclusive time slot.
Yeah. Or like I know Champions League in soccer does like allocations per league. I wonder if you could, I don't know, have different qualifiers, and then there's like a number of slots are guaranteed for JP runners or something, or I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to Milo about that. I feel like he's talked about how they're very open to trying new things and working on format and changing. I mean, even in this round of qualifiers, they changed kind of the point values allotted for each one. And I could be wrong, but my perception is coming out of, the summer qualifiers where we saw the third qualifier didn't mean anything for a lot of the runners. And so kind of trying to fight against that by making this third qualifier worth more points, which is awesome. I mean, I think it's great to have essentially, a league that's responsive and looks at things and tries to figure out ways to improve them. But it would be interesting to see kind of what solutions are out there to better incorporate the JP community, because we are just missing out on a lot of different perspectives, voices, different characters, and phenomenal talent by kind of not being able to integrate them more.
Yeah, seeing them be able to come to place more, like seeing Karen and Parsi.
Yeah,
that's insane.
I mean, some of the best in the game.
What's that?
Some of the best in the game we're missing.
Yeah. Japanese runners go crazy. They've just been kind of taken over slowly. It's so cool to see. I still feel bad for when Martin came. Their trip got kind of screwed, and they had like technical problems on stage, and they still were down to take the time out of their like first day. They actually got there to do the interview, which I really appreciated. But I would have understood if they were like, I need more time to play the game, because they got their first day taken away, and it was unfortunate.
Definitely tough circumstances. I felt really bad for Marlene. That whole finals was just like, damn, like what could have been, I have an idea for a segment if you're interested. You're an interviewer. We interview people as well. I call it interviewers interviewing interviewers. And I was thinking we can just show off our interview skills. We interview you while you interview us, and it's a battle of questions. We're just competing interviews. What are your thoughts there?
All right, man, let's get it done. Let's do this.
All right. How would you describe your interview style?
How do you feel interviewing Mario Runner? How does it make you feel? Giving that benefit to the community.
What kind of ritual do you have kind of going into your interviews, Geenix?
Have you ever experienced people coming in for an interview and they have audio problems? How do you handle that?
That's just our host. Do you agree that interviewing top speedrunners is harder than speedrunning at a top level?
Do you believe that speedrunning with your controller upside down is harder than speedrunning with it regular?
That feels like a personal attack. Do you ever watch your interviews back like game tape?
Do you ever listen to your podcast in the car?
Do you think pace is more stressful for you as an interviewer than it is for a runner?
I gotta follow up. I'll give you more time to think. Have you ever forgotten audio equipment before interviewing Beast Assassin 67?
I'm lost now. I'm not sure how to make a rebuttal. I've lost the interview battle.
No. It was a tie. It was just a masterful display of interviewing on all sides there. Randomly catching a stray from Zeas. What the hell, man? That was crazy.
The opportunity was too good. I had to take it. Every, probably 19 out of 20 some odd episodes, Geo has joined the call and been like, oh, fuck, I can't hear you guys. I gotta fix my
It's every time. You'd think I'd learn. I really haven't. Today, I did actually check my I was so proud of myself at 2 minutes before you sent the message being like, yo, ready. I was like, I should check stuff. And I did. So I learned. But yeah, Zeas, that was a brutal stray from you. Shifting back onto a little more substance. Do you have any like favorite stories that you've learned, or just from your experiences interviewing, some of these runners that just resonate with you or that you kind of reflect back on?
As far as favorite stories, I mean, I really enjoy the childhood stories that people would bring up. Most recently, I definitely really like Steve's story in his interview about his journey through music and how he ended up meeting the girl he's been with for like 10 plus years now.
Mm,
That's amazing. Yeah, there's like personal stories. I really like in Callie's interview, there's the moment where he talks about so much of his life being like cataloged online and being sort of this mementos box like on his YouTube channels. I love Simply's hand story. It's also one of my favorite. Cheese's coming out story, all that kind of stuff. All the personal tidbits or like most. It'd be hard to maybe pick a favorite, especially. I mean, it's been a while since I did the first series, so honestly, a lot of stuff's probably I could rewatch it myself sometime. um, but yeah, just those kind of personal stories are always my favorite, and those are the kind of things that it's like find people that do amazing things, like you're a fan of a musician or an actor or sports player, gamer, speed. Um, it's always made so much cooler when you start to feel like you understand what they've gone through in life more, um, and get like this non-parasocial sense of relatability,
mm,
that always makes them a lot more special. One thing I thought about with that was the way that Ouija, when I was talking to him about the Noise Critical Challenge stuff, I asked him like how much the money persuaded him to want to do it, and it didn't seem like much. He really just wanted to like prove himself to the world as a speedrunner, which I thought was really cool. And I think that's not something he's gonna announce all the time. But it's a
mm.
very simple statement that I think says a lot about him. I love that kind of stuff.
I feel like there's
Um,
so many hidden gems in every single person, and it's cool to kind of that you do that work to uncover that and help show it to the world and the community, the broader community, and give that people that opportunity to get to know these people better. um Ouija too on that point is just a gamer. The dude is just a gamer.
Uh,
He's such a sick gamer. It's insane.
yeah, he loves to prove himself. I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
But like him and Suigi both, it's so interesting that they're so good at Mario, but like if they don't have the motivation, they don't play. They want to do what they want to do and whatever they're feeling the most, like they want to prove themselves in, it seems.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I
I
think
think
is cool.
I think it's absolutely right.
Yeah, I think things that just like I guess like humanize people that we watch on Twitch a lot more. Um, like people who might not be like typing in chat and like asking runners questions and stuff, like having that sort of thing to give them something else to like relate to these runners to. Just because like not everybody speedruns Super Mario 64 at a high level, but everybody enjoys media, everybody enjoys music, everybody enjoys like other things. So having that outlet to unlock that side of runners is really cool. When you were going into your interviews, did you sort of prioritize personal questions more, would you say, or would you say you kind of made an even balance of personal questions and game related questions?
So yeah, I'd say the personal questions were the most important thing to me, but I knew it had to start with like in-game stuff. Well, the flow is actually like they kind of describe themselves and like I asked them, what was life like growing up and how would you describe the kind of stuff we do? And then I just go into a bunch of more generic game questions to see like what they like about Mario and how they describe what makes it good, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, the personal questions would be the big thing after that, and then a lot of like their history in the game. But for me, definitely bringing out their personality is the thing I'm most interested in with it. I feel like something like what you guys are doing would be, better suited for just talking about the game. So yeah,
I
definitely my
mean,
goal.
you see it all the time with I know there's a lot of parallels between covering speedrunning and covering sports, but you see it all the time with sports teams now on like social media and other things, that they're not just putting their rosters, their players' skills on display. They're like making funny content with the runners. They're making like things that bring out who they are as people. And I think it really, really helps people who weren't interested in this thing before kind of connect to it and be interested in it. So again, patting ourselves on the back, you know, I think we're doing speedrunning a service here. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're in a way getting more people interested.
Where would the community be without the three of us? You know, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
exactly.
We're holding this community up on our backs here. It's nuts.
I can't possibly give myself that much credit.
No,
But
I don't feel like I deserve honestly any credit. I do think what you do is great. I mean, because it covers so much more than just speedrunning. It does give this view, this window into these people's lives that, you know, you're bridging that parasocial gap, as you said. I do think it's so critical for developing a further bond with the game, with other people in the community and everything. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm a huge fan of it, and I hope you keep doing it. I know you did it at Summer Pace 2024. You had a few videos, and you said you're planning on being there in fall. Are you planning on a few more interviews, maybe?
probably not this time.
Okay.
I think definitely like not doing it in the fall and then doing it in the summer. But also, I kind of feel like I'm running out of Mario 64 runners that I'd really like to do.
Yeah.
So I think I want to branch it out. It's probably still like I'd still like Gothic and probably Milo.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think I'd want to do like runners from a different game. That's been the big thing now that I've thought about, or like content creators of some kind.
Sure.
Um, but also it's a lot of work with the editing, and I could probably find a way to make it more efficient, but it takes a while. Um, especially this time, like I moved twice this year.
Mm.
Just been going through a lot of stuff and been busy, and also like grinding the game. I probably could have finished the interviews I did just recently way faster if I wasn't grinding 120, but I really wanted to because I'd been held up for behind it. Like, sorry, held up from doing it for so long by different things. So I really wanted to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So if I do it more, I mean, I definitely want to. Sure, at some point, do some more stuff. Uh, but I want to try to find a way to make the editing process efficient to the best of my ability because I'm going to need good time management. I want to get it done faster, but I also want to be able to do everything else. So I'll have to figure that out. That's like my goal. Try to get the editing done way faster while also feeling like I have plenty of time for everything.
My strategy is we finish recording and then everything is just edited a few days later. It's incredible.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't even have to touch any editing software. It's phenomenal. You gotta get yourself a production guy like we got. It's just as easy for you, right? There's no effort on your part.
I mean, we've streamlined it a lot.
We
I
have
will
streamlined
say
it a little.
we have streamlined it, like the way that we record episodes now. Like, we kind of have the layout of what would be the final video just in OBS when we record it already. So for me, it's kind of just like chop it up where it needs to be chopped up and send it on its way. Add a few graphics here and there, then we're good. You know, but
Love the graphics.
Geenix, for you, it's like you're dealing with multiple camera angles. You're dealing with, you know, different, you know, audio tracks. I'm sure like it's a lot to work with.
Yeah, the thing that takes the most time is just the initial cutting, and because like I don't want to be marking stuff that I want to go back to. So if there's, you know, I try to cut out as much of the dead air as I can, so that's just talking, but it does sound natural. I don't think I'm the best at it. There's definitely times where it doesn't really sound natural, but like fine. But there's definitely times where I will like cut like frame after frame, trying to make it sound as natural as I can. Get sucked into that sometimes.
Oh yeah,
So that's the part that takes the most time.
it's a perfectionist process. It really is. When you have the ability to cut things down to the frame, it's like, well, why would I not do that? You know, like, just gotta put something out that you're comfortable with putting out. You know.
I think it's tricky too because there's a tendency when you're editing it and you're going over it and you're listening to it and you're going everything with over everything with a fine tooth comb, you're probably more aware of these little things than a normal viewer is going to be, but it's sticking out to you. And so you think you need to fix it. But the reality is it's like, is this even going to be noticed?
Yeah. And I definitely started to try to have that thought more with some of the cuts I did, because some of them just like sounded so much better than having dead space there, but
Yeah.
you can tell it's a very blatant cut. But I was like, that'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that. I have a little bit of a different question. We mentioned white whales before. One of our white whales is Simply, come on the fucking pod. How is interviewing Simply?
That was I love like talking to Simply because he doesn't have an online personality. He's just himself, and like he is one chill dude. So yeah, it was funny. It was fun. It was great. He was really receptive to stuff. He was the only one that time that I didn't manage to have a second camera angle. I had some issues with my phone that I was using to record at the time, so I wasn't able to. Um, and luckily, he's just a great talker. There wasn't really the need to break up that much, so it still ended up coming out super well. So yeah, it was just fun. He's such a cool guy, and yeah, good time. Oh, there was actually one funny story. I guess I can tell now.
Please, would love
So there during that interview, because we did it right after his first run on the first day of the actual competition. And we had that planned out for a while. He was like, "Yeah, I'll take a break after that, and we'll do it. We'll get it done with." Um, that was, if you remember that pace, there was a time where everyone just stopped playing, and it was like a problem.
Yeah.
So Milo actually came over because he knew that Simply was doing this interview, and he asked if he could stop to go up and play because he had no one. And I kind of like, oh yeah, that does suck. I feel bad. I'm gonna ask him, and I did. And dude, Simply was just straight up like, no, I'm not. I don't want to play, and I want to do this interview. And it was like pretty awkward that I had to go back and tell Milo, like, yeah, you said no.
That's so
Oh my
funny.
god.
I wonder if
You know,
Milo like
they
thought you were
eventually
telling
got
the
people
truth,
playing.
or if Milo was like, he's just lying to me. He's just keeping him for the interview.
I hope he didn't think that.
No.
I told him, I was like, yeah, we could, finish up at some point. They just really need you there, I think. But the
That's
interview
so
was
funny.
fun. I'm
Yeah,
glad he enjoyed it enough to be like, no, I'd rather do this than go back and play more.
I love that. I'm sure Milo also believed you. Milo's a great guy. That's so funny though. I never really thought about that issue with the production side of Pace, where if all of them are just like need a break, you just have dead air.
Yeah. They're kind of lucky that it's never happened outside of that. But
Yeah,
yeah, it was just everyone wanted to take a break after doing that one run. I forget if they made them do no resets there. A lot of people don't like. I don't know if they really do that now. 'Cause I know a lot of the runners don't like having to do a no reset to start off.
yeah. I mean, it kind of sucks if you like have a disastrous lobby and you're just locked into the next hour and 20 minutes, hour and 15 minutes or whatever. And it's like, this run isn't going to affect my standings. Like, I don't know. As a competitor, if I'm there, that's kind of annoying. I want to give myself the best chance to win, but
Yeah, you're just kind of exerting time and energy
yeah,
for like the show, but
100%. That's tough. Well, Geenix, this has been phenomenal. This has been so cool to get to talk to you about your interviews. You do such a phenomenal job with them. So it was really cool to kind of get more insight into the behind the scenes process and how you go about it. I do have one more question for you, if that's all right. And this isn't a surprise if you're familiar with any of our shows. We ask this to all of our guests. We would love to know your Mount Rushmore, your top 4 Super Mario 64 runners.
so is this like best runners or is this like important figure taken into account as well?
Whichever way you want to take
That's
it.
the beauty of it. It's open to interpretation. The eye of the
Okay.
beholder.
Uh,
And
So-
there's no wrong answer, to clarify.
yeah, I think Simply and Suigi have to be there. Simply, like, I know obviously he's incredibly good and he's had the world record, but what he has done for the game is the game would not be where it was right now if he didn't like go stream big and have that amazing like journey to world record and everything. That was huge for the community.
Totally agree.
Suigi's just absolutely the most insane player ever. I don't think there's much contest after seeing how quickly he got so good at 120. Um, After that, probably Ouija, and I feel like Siglemic would be this like guy. He's like the guy that built Mount Rushmore. He's not on.
I like that.
So
That's a
uh,
sneaky way
that's
to
a good
get
way
a
to put
fifth
it.
person. Yeah.
yeah, that's the fourth spot's really tough.
Yeah.
I guess cheese. Yeah, probably.
I think it's a totally fair pick. All of those are very defensible. I think it's a solid Mount Rushmore. No arguments from me.
You know what? We haven't done it in a little bit, I feel like. Geenix, what's your Mount Rushmore of Mario 64 stars?
Oh, I like that.
Stars.
As a speedrunner, what's your Mount Rushmore of stars?
So that's a cool question. HMC 100 is there. That's just too much fun.
Great choice.
Probably the best 100 coin I've come to realize.
Bold claim.
TTC 100
Also
was what I used to think was the best one coin star.
So what changed? What changed? Not to interrupt you, but what changed?
Great question.
I got better at HMC 100.
That's so valid. That's so fair.
Yeah.
I think that star just becomes way too much fun when you get like clean movement throughout and the good BLJ. It just feels so good. Dark World Reds and gosh, Gorge. I don't know, man. Maybe TTM Reds. I'll say TTM Reds just to wrap it up. That star's
Wow.
super duper fun. Dark World Reds had to be there. 200. They're just the greatest.
TTM Reds is a nice choice. I think it's unique. I don't know that other people have hopped on that choice, but I like it.
I don't
Yeah,
know
when you
if
do
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
when you do the movement super clean, it's insane. Getting like the speed kick, jump dive stuff to the mushroom,
Yeah.
that's a feel.
I don't know if anybody's ever chosen HMC 100 on their stars.
I
Mount
feel like
Rushmore
maybe we
before.
might have had that one. I can't remember though. We got to go back and check the tapes.
We gotta watch film here.
Yeah, we got to have a film night after this wraps up. We're hitting the film room.
We're back in the lab.
Back in the lab.
Stats.
Great Mount Rushmores. Both of them solid.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Maybe the Mount Rushmore of Mount Rushmores on this show. I don't know.
Oh.
Getting meta here.
Carve my head into stone.
Where's the Geenix statue? Just build it.
True.
Just build it already.
Just a bust of Geenix behind you. What if you had a bust of yourself behind you?
I'd feel very narcissistic.
I'd feel very uncomfortable. I wouldn't like that. I also am not trying to like turn around and see my own face. I don't need that.
You know, there's one thing that I wanted to talk about before I got off.
Yeah,
okay.
hit
It's
us.
something
sure.
I've thought about, and I know that Zeas, you obviously host all your tournaments. Something that I've been thinking about is don't know that the community is great about like putting tournament stats to history. Like, I keep thinking about this with the pace qualifiers and stuff. I don't know if we have the placements of each qualifiers like cataloged somewhere. There's probably a lot of what's it called? What's the bracket website called that everybody
The
uses?
run?
Challenge.
No,
Yeah, challenge. Yeah, probably a lot of those. And like something I would love to see sometimes catalog all that stuff on Ukiki, like similar to the Smash Wiki and stuff for their tournaments. I think that'd just be great to have the history there. That's just something I thought about.
I think it's a
So,
great
like-
point. I don't know. Milo for sure has qualifier data. I actually also might be in possession of that now. I do have finals results from all of the 120 LTAs, which at some point I would love to do something with as Pace Pals. But I asked Milo for that specifically so we could do something with it, and so there was a record. Because I agree with you. There's not enough like focus on like what happened in past years and like reflecting back on that and comparing to how it's kind of happening now. But I do think with more people covering pace and talking about it, the qualifiers, and then becoming kind of this event that there's a following. Hopefully that happens more, because I think it also adds another element and dimension, I guess, to this like excitement around these tournaments. Once you have that historical element, it builds to, you know, onto the tradition. It makes the tradition that much more, and it makes these tournaments mean more than just, you know, like a random LTA that happens, hope I win. But it's like, oh, like, look who else has won. I want to be, you know, just like past champions. So I totally agree with you there, and I think more needs to be done there, and I think more can be done there. But yeah, if you ever want to collab on something like that,
I mean,
let
I'd be
us know.
down to help out.
Let us know.
That's just something that I've been thinking about recently. I think that'd be super cool to have a section of like Wikiki that's just for history tracking with tournaments and stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
All right.
Well, this was awesome, Geenix. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate you taking the time. We love the videos. Everyone, if you don't already, or if you're not already subscribed to Geenix on YouTube, go do it. Follow him on Twitch. Links are below. Follow him on Twitter. Watch all of the videos. They're phenomenal. They're such an incredible portrait, each one, of the interview subject. And it's just a great way to get to know the community members more. So I don't know what you're doing if you haven't seen them already, but go watch them now. They're awesome. Geenix, thank you so much. This was a blast.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
man.
you guys for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Bye.
Bye.